Hi, this is Cliff. Today we're going to work a little bit on some more camera stuff. It kind of goes with that first camera number one, camera gear number one video I did last week. This is like an extension on that and a little more clarification on some of the things we covered. I mentioned tripods on the first video, and I showed you the first one. This is a little ultra pod, and if you look at the video you saw that it weighs, it's really light. It's a third or fourth, 75% less than some of the other stabilizing devices. I mentioned a Gorilla tripod. This is not a Gorilla, but it's a copy of it, where the legs can go around things and that kind of stuff. It's pretty heavy. It's about 4 times heavier than that ultra pod. This is the one that I said had magnets on it. I don't have anything that's metal, but it really has strong magnets on it, on the tips of the legs. It also has a panning device, that kind of stuff. It's about three times as heavy as that ultra pod. One thing I didn't mention was a cord tripod. If you remember, on one of my past videos I talked about a clothesline and maybe having something else instead of, and take the place of that clothesline. This is a device that a lot of people use in the field. If you don't have a tripod, you want to save a lot of weight, but you still need to steady your camera. All you need to do is take some cord. It can be bigger than this, but this is ultra light. It's also visible. And you put a little eye bolt in the end with threads of it's a 1/4 inch by 20. And make sure you put a nut on it so it's not too deep. And it's pretty simple. You just put it in the bottom, screw it in the little mount on the bottom of your camera. And you open up the cord and stick your foot in it. And just as you're standing there trying to run your camera, you just pull tight on your camera, and then you can pan and all this kind of stuff, and it will take out some of that shakiness. And you're going to have a lot of that when you're hiking, not just at Philmont, but anywhere. One of the things that is really hard to eliminate, and you might not notice it, maybe you do, is your heartbeat. Especially if you've really hiked a really steep hill and you stop to take a nice little video, you're going to notice that that camera, every time your heart beats, it's going to shake either up or down or sideways or whatever it is. And it's best if you can steady it a little bit with that cord. That cord you can just put in your pocket. It weighs next to nothing. And if you really want to save weight, you can take the eye bolt off and you loop it around your foot, but also loop it a couple of times around your hand and hold your camera up. Either way. But that will hopefully eliminate some of that. Some other things you can do that I've noticed is on how you hold your camera when you're shooting. Most people, they open it up and they want to shoot like this, with your arm just kind of hanging there. What this does is, a lot of times it will amplify that shakiness. You can get around that by bringing your arm in a bit, and that will steady it a little bit. And what I've found that really works well is tilt this thing up, and instead of shooting up like this, put it down, so you're looking down on it, and then shoot. That will get rid of some of that shakiness. It also helps, most people know what this means. This means that they're taking your picture. If it's done like this, and if you're just glancing at it a little bit, you can get a lot more candid shots before they realize what's going on. Like I said, bring your arms in, and when you're don't pan with the camera. Pan with your body. Bring that camera in next to your body and move your body instead of your arm. You get rid of some of that shakiness. There's other things you can do if you're using the little GoPro that I mentioned earlier. This is a little underwater, super heavy duty. You can do all kinds of things with it. Just go online and type in GoPro. You can see a lot of magic things happen. A lot of people will use this to shoot regular shots. And this one's even harder. It doesn't have a screen, so you don't know exactly what's shooting, but you also can't see how steady it is. And there's some things you can do with this. You can put that little your little ultrapod on the bottom, and that way you have a handle, and that helps steady it a bit. Another thing you can do is, if you're really going to shoot this thing, and probably just about any of them, if you want to pan, you put it up next to your chin and turn your head. Or if you're shooting a shot when you're moving, put it next to your chin and walk with it on your chin. It looks kind of stupid, it looks kind of silly, but there's something about the mechanics of our head and all this kind of stuff, and your inner ears. It helps keep things from shaking and keep things from moving around. So use your head as sort of like a steadying device. Like I said, it looks kind of silly, but it really works. It will steady that shot a lot just by using your head. I did talked a little bit about this little Nikon. It really makes a really nice picture. The only thing I don't like about it is a camera, and it doesn't have the zoom capabilities like I mentioned. Plus also, you can't hold it down like this because you can't really see it because of the angle. You have to hold it high. So you have to be really careful. You can steady it with your wrist like this, or whatever it takes to steady it. Other things you can do on just about any camera: lean against a tree, lean against a fence post, put your elbows on a rock to steady that thing. Put it on the little tripod. Most of the days, if it's not raining and stuff, a lot of times I'll carry my camera on that little ultrapod. And when we stop to take a picture, I'll find a high rock or whatever, stick that thing on there and use it like a tripod. It means also that you can get in the picture a lot more. There's other cameras. This is a little Kodak Placeboard. I don't think they make them anymore. Kodak's kind of dead in the water. But it's a nice little waterproof camera you can use. It's also high def. We'll probably have a couple of these floating around. I have two of these, and I'll let a couple of kids carry them, and they can do whatever they want with them. The battery life is short. I think it's about an hour, hour and a half on a battery, and I'll have a couple extra batteries for them. And they can use this however they want. That will help get some more goofy shots, because the kids always love to make goofy shots. Okay. I mentioned batteries last time. On that little Panasonic, it comes with 2-hour batteries, and they're about this size. You can tell how thick or thin it is. I mentioned a 4-hour battery. These are kind of a brick-shaped thing, a little bit bigger, but like I said, it's 4 hours. You're going to find that probably total on your trip, if you take 4 hours of video, you're doing pretty good. So most likely we'll take a couple of these, one of these and one of these, and it should get us by. We might take an extra one just in case. The way cards are nowadays, you're going to have access to recording probably 8 hours of video if you have enough batteries for it. Something about the wind. When we're shooting, especially, well, just about anywhere outdoors, you're going to have a problem with the wind making that awful sound on your audio. You can sort of eliminate that a lot by shooting with the wind coming from your back, so it doesn't hit that mic on the front of your camera. You can also, if you put it on a tripod and you want to get in on it, and just to guarantee it, you can take your hat And I did this before. I did this on the Camera One video. It was a really windy day, and it was really it would have really screwed up the recording. But I put the wind at the camera's back, not at my back when I was shooting. It was hitting me in the face a little bit, and it was on a tripod. And then what's nice about also these camcorders, you can turn this around and see what you're doing. But I also took my hat, and what's nice about facing it forward is you can kind of peek and see what's going on, make sure your hat isn't in the way. But use your hat or whatever, a scarf, whatever, a bandana, and use that to drape over the camera a little bit so it blocks any wind from coming to that microphone. And it works really well. Like I said, I used it on the last Camera Gear One thing. What I want to do now is just go over a little bit on production of the video, just some little hints, and we're going to do that on the computer. Hopefully this will turn out usable. We'll see. What I'm working on today is this is just a little junk file, but it's to show you some of the things you can do on your computer to make it a little more interesting. What I have down here on the timeline is just a short video. It's only about a 1-minute video, and it's of one of our assistants. He's talking about the hiking day.
Good morning. We're at the beginning of day 3, Lost Coast Boy Scout trip 2012. Behind me is a river, and then a little further behind that is the ocean. This is a beautiful.
Anyway, it's his account of what happened that first hiking day, and what the new hiking day is like. I mentioned a B-roll. What a B-roll is, just other clips and sights that you had during the day that you can use on those long shoots. Like I said, this one's about a minute and 20 seconds long, and it's a little too long for us to just sit here and watch him. And what you can do with those B shots is put those on another track. I stuck these over here so I can get to them really easy. Okay, what I'm going to do is break this thing up a bit by putting some B-roll shots on here. I put some B shots over here just so I can find them easier. Most likely they would be in your directory or however your program uses it. What I'm going to do is take these B-roll shots and break this up a little bit by putting it anywhere along in here. And this will break up his little talk by creating subshots. Okay. What you also need to do is kill the sound on those B-rolls so they don't overlap his stuff. We'll just play them.
River, and then a little further behind that is the ocean. This is a beautiful campsite that we found. Let me give you a little view of what's going on. And there's a couple other people that are staying a little bit further up the river from us. And today has already started out as a much better day than yesterday. It is not raining, and we can see the sun.
You notice it breaks up the shot a little bit, makes it a little more interesting.
Everybody's all dry.
Another thing that I mentioned, I'm going to get rid of these things, put them over here somewhere. I mentioned that when you shoot a shot, you're going to have like all these little short clips, 10 seconds long, whatever it is. That's about that's about how long we can watch things before we get a little disinterested in things. So that's why everything's about 10 seconds long. You can create longer files. I used his long speech to run these other little files in the background. and it makes it more interesting, like I said. Another thing I said to watch out for is in some programs, in most programs, you need to have a little a header, and a little footer, something at the beginning and something at the end of all your clips, stuff that you're going to cut off. Um, for one thing, when you start a clip, when you push the button, a lot of times you'll be a little unsteady, and sometimes you'll notice this on clips. Right at the beginning, you get a little shake. Right at the end, you get another little shake. That's you reaching over to turn to hit that record button on and off. So you need to get rid of that. Also, in Adobe, if you wanted to have a fade, let's see, fade between one shot and another. Okay, this is just a plain cut. But if you want to put a fade in, let me put a little simple cross dissolve fade in there. Okay, it's in some programs when you put a fade in, the length of your video will shorten, and if that happens, it doesn't matter too much about that beginning or end of your clip. What it does is they cross over, and it takes up the time at the end, so you lose a little bit of time. In Adobe and a lot of other programs, when you put a fade in there, what it does is it reaches into whatever you cut off, and it will use that for your fading material. And if you don't have any fading material, if you didn't cut anything or on or off, you'll get a funny little situation where usually whatever it's fading from will stop. It will stop a little bit, like a couple of frames. It'll freeze frame, and then the other thing will fade in. It'll start to fade out, freeze frame, and then fade in the other one. To keep that from happening, you got to cut a little bit on and off on each clip. I'm going to make this a little bigger and watch the video over here on the side. I'm going to move this over and watch what happens to these hikers when I run it, and watch those hikers during that fade. You'll see them stop. Right at the end, they stop, and then it fades into the next clip. To stop that from happening, you need to go to your clip. Let me pull this out of the way. I need to make this bigger so I can see it. Take this little clip and just cut it down. I'm going to cut down a lot. Okay. Now watch what happens when I put this fade in. And watch it fade, and they won't stop. That's all from taking a little bit off the end of this thing, and then when you do a fade, it'll pull that one thing in. It's something that happens all the time in Adobe. This is Premiere Pro, but it will happen in Adobe Premiere Elements. It also does it a little bit in some other programs. Sometimes it's something that you might want. You might want that little bit of stop action in there. Sometimes it's useful. Most of the time it isn't. So if you have Adobe or any other program, take a little off at the beginning and a little off at the end, and you won't have that freeze frame effect. Enjoy your trek. Enjoy making your movie. This is just a little idea on some things that you can do just to make the movie a little bit better. This is assuming that you have more than one track that I worked with. Most of your programs have many tracks. This one has, I don't know how many you can have on here, but there's only a few really cheap programs that don't have multi-track.
Premiere Elements has up to 99 tracks. You're only going to need 3 or 4. And those are tracks for video and audio. There's a couple that only have 2 tracks, and you kind of have to wrestle with a little bit. Some of them, the tracks, there's a dominant track. On this one, it's always the upper tracks. So if you take one of your clips and you put it on the upper part, it will dominate over the other one. If you put it underneath, I can't do it right now because there's only, let's see, let's put this here. If you put it underneath, it's not going to show at all. You could use it if you wanted to use the sound or something like that. You can mess with it there. But other than that, you all have multi-tracks and use them. Put your sound at the bottom. Thanks.